You guys want to get started? All right, cool. There's a glare? Is that what you said?
No.
I'm like, really? Now all of a sudden? Cool. You want to push people up, or yeah? You guys mind moving up a little bit so we can kind of fill the seats up front? We're gonna post this on our Facebook group. Not you don't. You're already up as fella. You're good. Yeah, just so it like looks like it's a little more full for the Facebook group. I usually do the same thing. Trust me. I'm usually that guy. I'm gonna move whoever's this bag this is. You good, Tone? Can you hear it on here, Tone? Good. Yeah, I got fans, so I can move them around here. There you go. That way, we can move that one around too. Don't worry.
Get somebody on this end chair.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I'll even turn this way for you guys. Okay. Cool. We're good. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it, as always. Somebody coming over? Or is that? Oh, it's Dave. I apologize. We were waiting for one more person who is going to be involved in this thing. This is our guy, Dan Mayer, which I'll introduce you when he finally gets here. Dan works with our appraisal management company. And obviously in today's environment with appraisals being probably one of our biggest issues, I wanted to make sure he was here to help you guys out, answer questions. So when I asked him when he was going to get here, he gave me a 25-minute about 15 minutes ago. So when he gets here, we're going to break his stones and we'll give him a hard time. But you guys will be free to ask him questions, anything you'd like. He's not the appraiser himself, but he's part of our management company, and he's the guy that'll go to town and really go after the appraiser for you if you guys need something in particular, okay? So bit over asked, the reason we put this presentation together, obviously it's a huge issue and huge things, just talking to a few of you guys right now as to what's going on in the market. So I'm going to be doing a bunch of this. Grant is going to come up and help me as well. Grant is my right-hand man, my partner. So if you guys are ever dealing with us as far as, doing a transaction, normally I'll talk to the client at the beginning, and then Grant is going to be the guy that they'll end up dealing with, throughout the rest of the process. So, so let's get into it here. Real quick, Tony Iannuzzi, which is AJI Media. That's the guy back there with the glasses on, the cool guy. Tony does all my video. So if I've heard from a few people that they've seen my social media and different videos that we do out there. Tony's the guy that's responsible for most, if not all of them. And he's really, really good. So if you guys have anything that you would like to do as far as, Tony, why don't you just tell them a little bit what you could do for them, I guess, is the best route.
Sure. Yeah, we do 3 things. We make videos, all sorts of videos, marketing videos, corporate videos, social media videos. We do live streaming, which we're doing here today. Hybrid, which is this. People here, people online, virtual, everyone online. And we do event production, staging, sound, lights, audio.
Awesome. And they're absolutely awesome. I've been using Tony for close to 10 years now. So if you guys want to do anything like even like an intro on yourself to be able to differentiate yourself with other agents when you're doing, like, let's say a listing presentation and you want to really show somebody why they should use you over somebody else, Tony's the guy to make it look amazing. Is the fan too much, by the way? Just blowing the pages. All right, cool. So Tony's one of our sponsors. I want to introduce you guys. So what are we going to talk about today? Real quick, rates, where they're currently at, what's going on to the best of our ability, how to fight the low appraisals, the math of a lower value, pros and cons of a low appraisal, and things to remember as a borrower. And then we're also going to do a Q&A. And also, obviously, this is a small group. So if you guys got questions as we are going through this, do not hesitate. Just blurt it out and let's just talk about it, because we're all here to help you guys in any way we possibly can. So this is a quick breakdown of where we see treasuries and mortgage prices. I'm sure not everybody here is an economist, so I'm just going to make it real simple. A month ago, rates were on their way up and higher. And in the last 30 days, things have started to drop back down, and they are continuing to drop lower. I just got off of a national call a little while ago. So the 10-year bond is what really drives interest rates. The 10-year bond has been as high as 160 or so, 1.60. Now it's settled in about 1.21. And there's belief that it may go down to as low as 0.80, which basically means we could see another refi boom, lower interest rates on the purchase market, more affordability, but obviously with prices increasing, it's an offset. So the good point is it's lower interest rates.
Pandemic level low, the 10-year was sitting at about 0.5%, 0.5, 0.52. So since the pandemic ultra low of the 10-year yield, that's gone up about 1.5%, shot up about the February, March timeframe right around.
Come on up here. They can hear you on my microphone up there.
I'm sorry, just because I'm the one that's kind of pushing this all the time, but you saw it. Pandemic level was about 0.55% on the 10-year yield. Heading into just about the President's weekend, coming out of the Christmas holiday, yield started to trend up. We hit about 1.6, 1.75. We were up here at the 10-year yield. Since then, it hasn't backed down since about that March President's Day weekend high. Has come back down to about that 1.2 yield on the market today. And again, economists do think that the yield could touch that 1% for sure, maybe drop a little lower. You do that, and now you're going to be back to those mid 2% on 30 years and high ones on 15.
So everybody's just freaking out again, not knowing exactly what's going on with the pandemic and the variants and all that crap again. So just something to think about. So this was yesterday in our market commentary, and basically you can read it yourself. But basically, what it comes down to is the market dropped 700 points on the Dow, which took us to the lowest point that we've been on as far as rates have gone. And then today, before I put this out, of course, it went the opposite direction. So we got a highly volatile situation. But again, rates are still hovering in the high 2s, low 3s, which is good for everybody. So, nothing to worry about. Dan's not here, and hopefully he gets his ass here in a few minutes. Dan's the appraisal management guy. So again, hold your questions for him when he gets here. He's very good, and he can answer anything that you guys got. So, some of this stuff is going to be very remedial for you guys, right? I'm just going to go over it because it's something good for you guys to hear. But if there are specific things that we missed, please bring it up. I know I talked to Scott about popping in and give me some pointers if we're missing anything. But the simple thing is, how are we fighting those low appraisals, right? First one is make sure we have documents ready for the appraiser if you have some comps or comps that that have hit, that have sold, because we got to use stuff that's actually has closed. We can't use anything that has not. If there are properties that are going to close prior to the one that we're using, it would be good comps. Let us know so we can schedule the appraiser to come out after those properties have closed. That helps us out a lot, and we can always work that out. We can always pay the appraiser a rush fee to move it up and move it quicker if we need to, if we know those comps are going to help us. I know we have one working in Tabernacle right now, Josh and I, and we have a couple of those properties right now where they're kind of like in between, like they could hit, because if the appraisal happens before our appraisal is completed, the effective date, then we can't use those new comps, even if they close. Once the appraisal is done, we're kind of screwed. Okay. Obviously, longer closings will help get the higher prices as the market rises. So the longer, the better. I'm not saying we can't close them quicker because we have a couple that are closing in 15 days. So it's not like we can't do that. But if we're really pressing value and we know there's other comps out there and we have the ability to, then you may want to consider trying to push for maybe, let's say, a 45-day close, something that may help us to get that higher value if we need it. Okay. All right. So we can only fight low appraisal by major issues or with comps that the appraiser may have missed. We can't use those future appraisals for closed deals once the appraisal is done, and always obviously check the appraisal for errors and comps. We just had that with actually one of Josh's deals. It was actually on a refi, but the fact of the matter was the appraiser missed significantly and came in about $150,000 short because he just good.
So basically, the guy had 1,100 square feet of an addition on his house, and the appraiser didn't measure for it.
Right.
He walked through the house really quick. He looked at public records, saw that it was 2,200 square feet, but really it was 3,300 square feet, which is a whole different.
Yeah. So appraisers make mistakes is basically what the question and the answer are right there, right? There's never going to be a time where you can automatically just count them as whatever they say stands. So we can always fight them. We came back and we fought that. We got $125,000 extra. Again, it was a refi. It's not a purchase. But my point is, it's still mistakes happen. So we don't want to ever just automatically assume that, you know, that appraiser is the end all at the end of the day. The more money your client can put down, the better the odds are you can get an appraisal waiver. So that's only for conventional. So, you know, to that point, if you guys have a deal that you're running to us or any other lender, if you give us the address and tell us what you're putting in, and we strengthen that file with every last thing that we possibly can, as much assets as they possibly can. We get that DTI as low as we can. It may trigger the DU, which is desktop underwriting for Fannie Mae, or LP for Freddie Mac, to give us an appraisal waiver. We've got to happen on many deals. It's a lot easier to go in and make that offer to your, you know, to the listing agent when you have an appraisal waiver in your hands. It will obviously, I mean, I know every agent right now is trying to get every last penny for their sellers, but if you already have an appraisal waiver in hand, it might make it a hell of a lot easier to be able to say, we're already done and you know you're good to go. So, anything to that?
Yeah, just to that, where the status coming from and where we get the PIW, what we call the property inspection waiver, it is the strength of the file, but it's also, since the housing collapse in 08, 09, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have been keeping a separate report called an SSR with every appraisal that's done. So we as a lender get the appraisal after that's delivered to us. There's an SSR that's produced, and it basically is data that goes to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac for their master servicing system, for their master records. That SSR gives a score of a 1 to a 5, 1 being a very good value, 5 being could be overinflated or be cautious of this value here. So that's where that is a main driver for that PIW. You have an area where a lot of homes have sold, and they're all selling at 600, 605, 610. Your buyer's going in at 615. Most likely, you're going to stand a better chance of getting a hit in that. The problem is we can't pull that SSR data. We can only see what we've done, but inside that main mother computer, that's where that PIW is coming from. So again, just something we've been able to get a couple agents to be able to go in and have, hey, I'll waive the appraisal in my contract. We're done. We're satisfied if you take, 623.5. And we can play with that and tinker with it too. 625, 620, 622. See if it would pop in that range, or just picking that price for any of your clients out there. Yeah.
So one last thing, not to take my little 2-second commercial here, but we also do something at our company called True Approval. And what that basically is, instead of a pre-approval, it's True Approval, which actually means TRU, which stands for thoroughly reviewed and underwritten. So basically what we'll do is, and a lot of companies are now doing this, but we're taking it one step further. So what we are doing is we're underwriting that file up front. We are going to give conditions to the borrower on what we need. At that point, if they get those conditions into us, we'll actually give you a full commit to our system. So if you can give us a couple extra days to get people to get their crap together, because sometimes they don't move as fast as we would like, we promise we can actually do that for you guys, and that'll actually be something that can help you to win deals. Okay, so let's talk about a scenario. This is an actual scenario that actually happened with us. It actually happened a couple of months back when we were seeing more issues with appraisals because we were seeing a much higher, it was happening at a much higher rate. So I want to kind of use this one. So we had a borrower sign a contract at 650. Value only came in at 518. Okay. At the 650, they had a 31% down payment. So basically a loan amount of $450,000 with $200,000 down payment. Value, when it came in low, in order to keep the loan the same, the loan goes to 450. You divide that by the 518, and now we're at an 86.8% loan to value. So now we got mortgage insurance potentially. The borrower now has to pay taxes and insurance through the loan, which a lot of people don't want to do if they don't have to. So now the down payment to stay at the same $200,000. The only thing changing on the paper is the value and the added mortgage insurance. So again, it still can be done, but it's changing the scope of what's going on with the loan. So we have a couple different options that we can do in this situation. Number one, we can keep the loan as is. We can add the mortgage insurance. It adds a cost of $67 a month. And we're going to show you guys all this with a payment too in a few seconds. The other option is we can pay down the loan by the extra 6.7%, and the new loan is now at 80%. So we're at $414,400, or a difference of $35,600 in cash to close. So if we look at that, real quick, our next sponsor, Dave from National Integrity. It's like a good TV, it's like a sitcom or like drama, or like a drama, right? All right, Dave, tell us a little bit about you and National Integrity.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I am, but I'll come up front.
There you go.
I'll make it real quick. Hey, everybody, most of you I know, a lot of you have worked with us in the past, and some of you sounds like will be in the near future. And then there's Scott that I work on this week. But we are a medium-sized title agency based right out of Marlton. So what I like about our agency is we're not so big that you're just going to be a number when you send in a file, and we're not so small that we get overwhelmed and we can't handle your file when it's really busy, which it has been. So that coupled with the fact that we're pretty technologically advanced compared to the other agencies in the area, we have some good technology that's out that helps to inform you throughout the process on what's going on, and also your clients, the buyers and the sellers, and anybody else in the transaction, the lender and the attorney. So I do have a handout on that. I'll give out after Jeff is done, and I'll also hand out my card. You can call me with any questions. I'll turn it back over to Jeff. Thanks.
Nice job. Nice job. And now from our commercial break, back. Sorry, I had to. It was a great setup. All right, so this is, we use Mortgage Coach. For any of you guys have seen it, this is just a presentation software to be able to show your clients what's going on. So in this situation, originally our LTV was 70%, 650 value. Low value comes in. We're now at 518. Now she has to have escrows. LTV is 80 decided that's what she wanted to do, so she could waive the taxes. So in this situation, our original loan was 650, 450 loan amount, 2.875. 30-year payment was $3,007 and bringing $202,000 cash to close. If we did the monthly MI situation where we stayed at the 86.8, I believe it was, or whatever, 86, I believe, 86.8, goes to 450, still the same interest rate, but our payment's going up $60-some, and we're still staying at the $202,000 to close. And what she decided to do was to lower the loan amount, keep the interest rate where it was, and we're going to drop her payment down to $285 a month, $28.59. So she's going to actually save a little bit of monthly, $215 a month. So this is breaking down the payment so you can see, again, exactly how it breaks down. The whole idea behind it is that it doesn't kill your deal, is what it comes down to. Your LTV is changing, but that's just the beginning of the transaction. And you're going to see in a second when we look at appreciation, there's only a certain period in time it's going to take where they're going to actually be able to break even again. You know, when we look at somebody, whether it, not the purchase side, but on a refi side, we look at somebody and say, how long is it going to take for somebody to recoup their savings of what they're spending to refi and save money, right? And that's the same thing you can do here when somebody's bidding over the asking price. It's the same scenario. So let's look at that real quick. So bidding over ask, right? On the next 5 years, the featured by the MBA, they're expecting a 2.98 average increase in value, right? And that's actually probably low because we're seeing a heck of a lot more than that right this second. So if that's the case, that's $95,000. So somebody who's buying that property, they're asking for $600. The bid above asking is $50,000. So now we're at $650. The last time the customer bought that home was $450, and it was 2018. If you look at what we got going on here, the home's going to break even in about 28 months, which is going to be somewhere here in about 2023 to 2024, where they're actually going to break even above their ask price. So the people that are saying, I don't want to pay this because it's too much, and you know, it's just I just can't swallow it. At the end of the day, if things continue the way they're going, and there's really no catalyst that's going to stop it from the way it's going, even at a low appreciation, not a low appreciation, but at a decent appreciation value of less than 3%, they're going to make their money back in 28 months. So that's how you really explain that to your buyers, that it's okay to go over the asking price if they have the cash, that they can do it. Does that make sense? Okay. And then there's obviously some pros of a low appraisal, right? We already know we're going to be able to get these people to make their money back up over the next couple of years, in less than 3 years. But the other pros of having that low appraisal is that they can go back in and they can fight the taxes. I'd love to fight the taxes here in Marlton because I pay way too much, both on this property and the house I live in. So, but that's really obviously one of the biggest ones. Also, the probability that homes in the area are going to increase next year, it's pretty huge, right? I mean, right now, still there's inventory shortages. It's not going to slow down. So 2.98% as far as an appreciation is still super low. If the value comes in higher for taxes, the borrower can use the appraisal as leverage if they need to lower the taxes. It doesn't even read right. All right, anyway. And then the cons of a low appraisal. The buyer obviously has to pay a slightly higher monthly payment, but that's not always 100% true. Like as you saw in our original breakdown, the payment doesn't actually have to be higher. It can actually be lower depending upon how you want to structure the file. There's ways to do it to make sure that they're taking everything in the right possible and every opportunity they have here. The borrower has to bring more money to remove the mortgage insurance. Again, they can do it that way, or we could do buyout of mortgage insurance. We do a lot of those right now. I think we were talking about that on a couple of different files, right?
PMI can be done, that you may or may not know. PMI can be done two ways: the traditional way, or what they place it as a monthly payment. You can use a one-time buyout feature where that client makes brings an additional amount of money to closing and buys the PMI out of the mortgage for the monthly. So, in some cases, you look at it, a strong credit score, even at a 95 loan to value, your $200,000 loan, your PMI rate might run probably like 0.51 to 0.52. So on a $200,000 loan, be about $1,000 a year, divided monthly, you're about $85 a month. That same scenario, strong credit score, even at the 95, you might be able to have that client buy that PMI for like $3,000 to $4,000. So if you're looking at $85 a month for the next, 9 years until you pay it down, you're going to run about $9,000, $10,000 of a cost, where you can get it at 50% discount, or however you want to sell it to them. But really, it is just some numbers wise, and we have used that, just in straight purchases, and also in a scenario where your property does come in at low value, we move money around and go ahead and buy that PMI out to keep that payment back.
Yeah. So PMI buyout is a good way to go as well. And especially with the interest rates where they are right now, we're not expecting them to drop down significantly lower than where they are, because there are people that we've done PMI buyouts for in the past where we were in the 3s and 4% interest rates. And then we come back and it's like, ooh, we bought out that PMI. It's kind of like a bad scenario. In this scenario, shouldn't really come back to really haunt them all that much. So it's not really a bad option. And then obviously, the con of the low appraisal is once the loan goes over the 80%, they got to pay their taxes and insurance out of their through the loan, which again, some people like, some people don't. It really, everybody is different. So things to remember as the borrower themselves. The borrower can remove the mortgage insurance in 2 years using the appraised value. All right. But the mortgage insurance must stay on for 2 years if we're going to use the new value. Okay. The borrower at any time can pay down the principal to the 80% mark and remove the mortgage insurance and start paying their own tax and insurance versus escrowing. So again, as values continue to increase, there's that possibility of getting those mortgage insurances removed a lot quicker as well. And then the borrower can refinance if the rate and fees make sense after 6 payments, so that they can use the new value to do the above, which we've seen happen with a lot of our clients because of the way things just continue to go up. So everything we've been talking about so far at this point has been strictly about about conventional appraisals at this point, because I'm sure, as most of you know, most properties are going conventional, but FHA appraisals and some solutions here. So obviously we have when the biggest issue is when an FHA borrower is buying a house or a VA borrower is buying a house, the concern is that they have no additional funds and that they're not going to be able to do anything in those situations. It doesn't automatically happen on every possible deal. So we have to look at every deal individually. We just closed a large $660,000 VA deal, and we kind of rolled the dice and we got lucky and the appraisal value came in. But we were able to sell the listing agent on it because the buyer did have extra cash to bring to the table in case it had come in low. So we did have some flexibility there. The FHA buyers are not getting those deals accepted at normal rates. And what can we do about it? So the FHA mandatory clause, escape clause, you want?
Really, again, as you guys have outlined in the contract, sales standard in New Jersey, you know, with the FHA, unless you're modifying that contract, that mandatory clause and the FHA escape clause is there in the contract, and it states if the property doesn't appraise, one of three things: down in the price, seller or buyer brings the difference in cash, or everybody walks away, cancels the deal, and goes back to square one. So we're not really seeing it as much in the FHA world with that because, again, it kind of comes to the point of, do you have the cash? If not, okay, seller, are you coming down? No, all right, we're going to cancel the contract, and we go from there. Again, FHA does have its pros and cons for buyers and then for sellers and agents. Once a property's been appraised by an FHA appraisal, that's logged for 6 months. Any lender goes to sell it again FHA, or you sell it to another buyer FHA, we've done an appraisal. That value we got is going to stick with it for 6 months, like, you know, instead of lunch.
You guys having any luck getting any FHA deals through? None at all. Okay. Couple here and there. One of the things that there's a little loophole that we can use if we do have FHA borrowers is that if we were to do an FHA, and I know people sometimes automatically get like, oh crap, an FHA 203K. But what we can do with an FHA 203K as a backup for your buyers is an FHA 203K allows you to go to 110% of after improved value. So theoretically, if you got a borrower that's going to be buying a $200,000 or $300,000 house, and there's another 10% there, there's $30,000 extra in value that could be there. So what do? So basically we set it up with, let's say, $1,000 in painting, right? Because we're not really looking for the work that's going to be done to actually help to increase the value. We don't really even care what they're doing with the work. Like, it doesn't really make a difference at all. It just comes down to that the calculation will now allow us to go above what the allowable value is. So you could go that 10%, and then it's 3.5% off that new number. So if it's a $300,000 deal, you could be up at $330,000, and then it's 96.5% of that. So when somebody automatically says no to an FHA, that's how you can combat it. We just had one come in yesterday that came in $25,000 light in Little Egg Harbor, and they're actually going back to the sellers to negotiate. But the agent wasn't aware that we could do this, and he's like, "Oh, I can come up with a bid for $1,000 for painting." So now he knows he's got up to $30,000 that he can use to actually combat that with the seller. Okay, I'm sorry.
What is the approximate interest rate difference between?
Good question. So typically the interest rate is going to be about 0.5% or so higher than a regular FHA. I've kind of been talking to our secondary department and kind of putting together like a plan. Hey, look, if this is not a real 203K, but it is a 203K, we're going to try to actually get an exception to do the rate at the same price. Because at the end of the day, and again, hopefully my company is not like dialing into the Facebook and watching this, but 203K rates and FHA rates are the same. They're not really different. It's company risk. It's the risk that's associated with that the companies are actually deciding to add on that additional interest rate add-on. So in this situation, when we're only putting $1,000 into the budget just for the sake of being able to help a borrower to be able to get that additional equity value to be able to use in the transaction, there's really no risk because we're really only using the $1,000 for the purposes of getting that extra 10%. Does that make sense? So it's there as an option. So something to think about. The one we were just talking about, it didn't come in as a 203K. It came in as a regular FHA purchase, but now he has that in his back pocket when he goes back to the listing agent. So just something to think about. Cool. And next is Ryan from the Reader Insurance Agency.
Hey everybody, I'm not much of a presenter, so lucky for me, there's not much to say about insurance. Everybody needs it, nobody wants it. But that's what I'm here for. What it comes down to is usually just pricing, availability, and responsiveness. I have brokerage, 12 plus different companies I use. Bigger names, smaller names. And as far as availability and responsiveness, you send me something for a client for a quote. I'm usually back to you within 15 minutes to get the hour. quotes run for 5, 6, 7 different companies, whatever's better for your client. So if there's anything I can help you or your clients out with, I'm more than happy to do so.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan. And like I said, it was going to be right around the 5 o'clock mark, so it tried to make it nice and quick. That's the end. If you guys have any questions, anything that we can help you with, I really do believe our true approval process will help you guys to win deals, because that, again, is something that's fully underwritten and you can waive your mortgage contingency. Keep that in mind when you're thinking about it for buyers. I think in this market, it's a big deal. And that's the basics. So any questions?
You said that the true approval essentially when you put an offer in saying you have a full commitment, it's minus the appraisal.
Minus the appraisal and title, yeah. Yeah. But what we need in that situation, just so you know, we'll tell you once they submit it to us, we'll actually give it back to you and give it back to them moving forward as what we call a true qual. So it's actually basically a fully underwritten approval, but it's conditionally approved. I need the rest of their documents, and as long as they do it in a quick, timely fashion, I can get it cleared in 24 or 48 hours, and then you have a full loan that's basically committed at that point, and you can actually go to the seller and say, this is better. This is just like using cash, except for the appraisal and title. So it can be a big way to help sell the deal. What is it? Yeah, please.
I'm Scott Zielinski. I know some of you got on me, but real quick. So I've probably won close to like 15 appraisals that we fought the value because of the way they come in. Jeff knows, I don't know if Grant knows, but I have about 8 years mortgage experience. And I process my own stuff. So I used to look at the appraisals, know what to look for the percentages, things like that. Like Jeff and Josh said, you really want to look at the square footage, but look for like finished basement, anything like that the appraiser didn't mark on there that maybe they're missing because they add huge values. So you always want to look at the number of rooms, the square footage, the finished basements, pools and yards. They really don't care about. That's a pretty small adjustment. And then go to Jeff or Grant with comps that you think can fight the ones that they put on there. If you don't think they use the right ones, I always start a half a mile out 6 months back. And if I can't find what I need to fight it, I expand from there. I then go to 3/4 of a mile, 6 months back, 8 months back, 12 months back, and I find the ones and I go to them and fight. The only one I lost was one that the appraiser had a comp at 170 and we were under contract for 220 and he wouldn't take it off. I had good comps, and I always go back to the lender with the comps and I give them a breakdown of every single property. 123 Main Street, sold for more, smaller square footage by 400 square feet. Give them the breakdown, because if you give that to them, they'll be able to actually fight it with the appraiser and usually get you the value, and maybe not the whole value. I've had 1 or 2 that came back like $5 grand short, but we're 30 or 40,000 short that you give them. So if you do that legwork, it makes it easier for them to fight because they can't see the public records like we can. The other kicker that I've won with is off-market properties. You know, houses have sold in the neighborhood or on that street for off the market, off the MLS. Get a hold of the owners, get a copy of their not MLS, it would be their HUD or their Ulta, and get the information to them because they can use those even though they're not on public records. That's huge. I've probably won 4 or 5 by just knowing that a house 4 doors down sold, but it sold off market to somebody's cousin, and they didn't use a realtor, so it never hit the MLS. But you can win them. You just have to do the legwork to do it. On my listings, I fight every one of them. On my buy side, I kind of leave it to the listing agent to fight it, right? But yeah, you can win them. You just have to do the legwork.
I had a appraiser recently let me use offers as part of his comp. Is that something you do?
So,
I've never had anybody do it before. He asked me for other offers that were higher and in the same range, and he said he could use them somehow.
So I've never used them, but on the deal that we lost in Magnolia, it was with Carrie Ritchie's daughter, Elijah.
Where?
And she's like, "Oh, use the ones that are under contract. Just get a copy of the contract." I was like, "Awesome." I got copies of the contract. We put it in, and they still, that appraiser, just for whatever reason, had a bug up his butt and didn't want to budge at all because I had 3 really, really good comps, and he just would not take that 170 off. And he came in 30,000 short, and he wouldn't give me $5 grand. He wouldn't give me a penny, no matter how much we bought it. So, at the end of the day, remember, appraisals is a person's opinion, right? So if you get that one appraiser that just does not care There's one appraiser around here. You pay her $100, she'll get you your value all day long, but she'll come in short this time. So she wants the research fee for whatever reason, but I pay it every time, and we get the value every single time. So,
I know who that is.
yeah, but if you give them the paperwork to back it up, they'll be able to fight it for you.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
just wanted to mention
No. I appreciate it.
that.
So
I have
it's
one up on Chuck.
yeah.
Sorry,
It's,
and that's where we are lucky with Karis as our management company. Dan Merrick.
if he ever does show up, by the way.
Yeah, hasn't showed up, but it's nice. We have him kind of as our account manager, so I don't want to say he's at our beck and call, but when you text him, he'll be on the phone. He knows his reports. He'll look at it. He'll go over. He'll go to bat and look to make it work. He'll also be blatantly honest with you. He'll be like, "Listen, brother, I don't know how they got 500, but be happy they got 5 because this is like 420." It's like, okay, but he if there is something to believe in, he will work with you too. But again, get us the data, get us that MLS number. We don't have that. Get that for us so we can go in and we can pull that stuff and get it back.
Make sure that you give him the town you're looking in, because apparently he's directionally challenged. He's actually at 76 East Main Street in Maple Shade right now.
After that, then loop them back around here.
Yeah. Dan, we're gonna have to really think about this here, pal. Not exactly sure. Luckily, he's not an actual appraiser. No, he doesn't look at any houses in person. So anyway, sorry, you won't be able to ask him questions today. But I will send out the presentation so that if you'd like, you can have his number. He'll actually take your calls too. They're a really good management company, so he'll be happy to answer any questions for you guys. He's really good. Any of you guys have been to any of our events we had previously, he's been there. At some of the ones we have at Cafe Aldo. So he's really good at what he does, and he'll help you if it helps you guys out. He'll do anything he can to help you guys. So, yeah. So, any other questions? No.
What do you think about buyers that don't have like extra cash in this market? Like I'm young, I want first-time home buyers. My friends are like, I got $5 to buy a house. I'm like, crap. All right, here we go. So, right? Like, they really don't.
Their turn. It's a 10-year cycle.
Right.
Sorry, I say that
No,
half
I know.
jokingly,
It's
but
like
I
I
don't.
really have the answer.
All right, housing market collapsed 2008, 2009, went down the tubes. 10 was at its low, 11 it was at its low. Right, that's kind of where it was in the historical. Come back around, you had your moderate appreciation, 2-3% each year. That's the way this trend ran. You hit this COVID pandemic, that shot off, the values of it. Looking back, you had the heydays of mortgage mania that just loose lending that drove the values up and did all that. So there is that ebb and flow, and that's I hate to be like, oh, I'm an adult, you got to wait your turn, but that's kind of it is. It's just that historical cycle that it does come back around. Save your money now, so when it is, hit that next 10-year cycle, you're right.
So apparently, this is a Dan Mayer. We were just talking about you really bad too, live on Facebook, just so you know. So we were just talking about appraisals and good timing.
Yes.
This is Dan. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask the man himself. Kind of.
I gotta help anybody with, like I said, a lot of appraisals questions regarding escalation and the bidding wars that we're going through right now. How do you guys see the market respond to that?
Pretty low. Pretty low.
Okay.
I had a transaction where acquired one VA came in 70,000 less than the sales price.
Damn.
And then this would go dimensional, and then it went up 40,000. So still came in low, but 70,000.
VA is tough because we don't really control that. That goes through the VA portal. So that,
Luckily, you decided to go dimensional less.
yeah. Good.
I guess the feedback I receive a lot from appraisers is that you guys, when you list a property, you basically look at the comps in the area, and you base it on the list price at the comps that are available to them. But basically, if you go into a property, you look at the comps, you go to your listing appointment, and you say this house compared to what's on the block or what's in the area is worth $300,000. Okay. And now we list the property up for sale with the comps that support $300,000, and basically you get into a bidding war, and it's ripped up to 330. So the appraiser comes in, he's using this basically the same comps that you guys are using, and he comes in at 310, and then he came in short, but did he really come in short?
No, it came in right where the market
Okay.
is now.
2 years ago, if you had the listing
But now
and
it's
it came in at
the
300,
pending, but the pending ones show where.
but you can't use the pencils. So what I would suggest that you guys do, okay, when you're doing, if you are a listing, if you do have a listing, or you do have, or on the buyer side, okay, you look at the market. If there are pending ones, maybe it's best to lock down the contract and wait for those things to sell. You might have to push back settlement, but
That's what
you
we
might
said
not
earlier.
lose settlement.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to look at if you're in a bidding war and you know that you're basically the anxiety starts once they sign the papers, right? Let's be honest with everybody.
Right.
Okay, great. We got the house, 30,000 more than it listed, but you go to bed that night, you're like, okay, how the hell is this going to appraise, right? So you might have to look before you tell your mortgage people to go ahead and order the appraisal. You might say, hey, let's hold off on the appraisal. Now that we have the contract signed, maybe I can push back settlement. So you guys, if you see pendings out there, my advice to everybody is make sure that if the pendings are going to help your escalations, I would hold off in the long. Okay, but a lot of these appraisers aren't really coming up short. I see a lot of them middling it. So the sale price is 330, the list price is 300, and I see them coming in at 320, 315, and stuff like that if they can't get the price. So, I mean, don't forget, it's a little bit different than 2008, where they have, a portal that they have to, the CU has comps in the area, so there's a lot of data now that wasn't back in 2008. They have now, so they got to answer to, underwriters and CU and stuff like that. So they get graded on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier about the SSRs. So it does.
Yeah, the SSRs are very big. That's their report that does go on. And underwriters see that, Fannie sees that, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think Grant said it earlier. The scores are between a 1 and a 5. Anything over 3.5 usually costs us, where we have to actually get involved and ask for either a desktop review or a second appraisal. So it does cause issues if they just happen to come up to the number that we need. It's not as easy as just making the number as it once was, where they could just get it done. Now they actually have something that they have to be held accountable to. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah, so like a comp that's 2 miles away, it doesn't really, and he has comps in the neighborhood, it doesn't really, it's he's got to be accountable for that kind of stuff. But we're getting through it. I see the escalations slowing down a little bit. I don't think the craze, I still see them, but I don't see as much as the craze as, I've seen $150,000 higher than list prices. So
Definitely happens.
I still see the escalations going on, but
Not as bad.
not bad. Slow down.
Do you have a question? Yep.
It's not a question, it's an observation.
Okay.
Many homeowners have a requirement for the addition of the house. They did it with the township, they have it with the somehow or other, the township never updated the value of the house. So the property, the owners left it that way because they didn't have to pay
Extra taxes, yeah.
so what we have to be careful is that when the appraisal does really measure the city that it's not 2,000 square feet, it's 2,500 square feet. I can tell a couple of those.
Yep.
Now, usually, appraisers will laser the house, okay, and it's very quick. So a lot of times, what I hear back from borrowers is, "Oh, there's no way you can measure my house in 10 minutes." Well, the laser, you pretty much laser. He doesn't have to get or he didn't really measure. I'm like, well, I did. He didn't get the tape measure out, but he's basically doing electronically, less laser and stuff like that. The most important thing about additions and sunrooms and stuff like that, as we all know, if they're not heated, they do not count as additional GLA.
But I'm talking about additions that really are.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
As I said, the homeowner never argued about it because they
Right.
now they need.
Now, when you list the property, do you measure it before you list it, or do you go off? Okay. Because I do see a lot, sometimes, not a lot, but sometimes I do see that some railroads use the GLA off of the county records and stuff like that.
Well, if it's a condo.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
That's a good point. Cool.
Yes.
This really doesn't have much to do with selling a house, but I'm just curious. I recently had some basement work done on an unfinished basement. Now it's like partially finished, and the guy that was doing it said if there's a window and a closet in the same room, it automatically would be assessed as a bedroom. Like you would automatically get a tax hike for that. As an appraiser, did you ever hear anything like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that true? A window and a
That's not really for assessment purposes, but it's for if you have septic in the back. A lot of septic systems are based upon bedrooms.
Yes.
Okay, so that's in that regard, yes, I've heard of that, but not for a basement to have a bedroom. You're not going to get assessed.
Okay. Yeah, he was pretty adamant. Like if I added a closet, closed closet
Well,
with a window in there, it was going to be counted as a bedroom.
You have to worry about the size
And
of the
egress.
Egress window.
Egress window, or
Yeah.
just a window?
An egress window.
Yeah, then it would be a bedroom.
Yeah, but it can't be because like my house is the same. I put a finished room in my basement and it has all of that, but it can't be because all my septic system is only for 4, so it can never be used. It can never actually be done as a 5. So they couldn't actually assess it or sell it as a 5.
Interesting. Yeah, I just never heard that before.
but you'll get more credit for it on an appraisal if you have a bedroom in the basement. Okay, you might get 1,000 or 2. Not like something that's above grade.
Right.
If you can see, if you ever look at an appraisal and it says below grade and it says, RR and BR and BA,
Yeah.
the BR is the bedroom, the BA is the bathroom, and the RR is the restroom. So you might get a little bit, for somebody that doesn't have a room, you might get a few $1,000.
Yeah.
But I never heard of them assessing taxes for a basement bedroom. Anything else? Sorry, I'm late.
No, perfect timing.
I went through Maple Shade.
Yeah. I was breaking your stones. I was like, he's in Maple Shade, so luckily he's not going to show up at your house to do any appraisals.
Yeah.
Exactly. There you go. Well, guys, we appreciate everybody coming. We're going to do our next event in September, so we're going to take off August because it's a little hot. This was even a little hot, but please stick around. There's plenty of food, plenty of booze, games to be played. Hang out if you can. We got, love to have you guys hang out and just chill and network and go from there. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll throw some music on. What's that?